Okay, so this video is going to be a primer on everything about managing the wall types. And so this is going to be kind of a deep dive into that topic. And this particular demo is going to be something that's critical to your success in using Revit as well as in this class. So just like all the other times, I'm going to start a new project, architectural project, hit OK, and when my dog is done scratching herself, we'll go in and I'm just going to place a wall here just so that I have something to work with. And by default, you can see that it's got this generic 8-inch wall here. I'm actually going to go and change it to this just so we have something to work with and place it down. So this is the wall we're going to be working with. And like the other times, I'm just going to change some of these settings here so we can see it better. Now, this isn't the only wall that you would use, and this is probably not a wall. Well, this isn't a wall I would allow in our class for a normal project. And so you're going to have to modify wall types throughout this class. So what does that mean? So I'm going to copy this wall over here just so we have a reference of what our start was and then what we're going to work towards. So this one on the right, let's do left is the original, and then the one on the right is going to be a new wall type. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over, I have this wall selected, and I'm going to click Edit Type right here. And this is going to bring up this scary looking menu, and it's got all these other things here. For the purposes of this class, we don't care about anything else except this Edit button, really. Because we're just going to be going in and changing things. We do need to rename this, and so I'm going to rename this to we'll do exterior and we'll do brick on wood stud. Because I am a mean person and like to torture you guys, I require every wall in this class, unless I specifically give an exception, to be a wood stud wall. All floors must have wood studs, and all ceilings must have, or sorry, all floors must have wooden joists, and all ceilings must have wooden joists, or be directly below a floor that has wood joists. And that requirement is basically in this class because all the walls by default in here already have metal studs or CMU blocks, which are concrete masonry units. Just as a reference, this is a concrete masonry unit, cinder block, you've probably heard of, similar term. These are what this wall is currently designated as being built with, is a concrete masonry unit right here. So let's start from the top again. So we've got this wall right here. I'm going to select it. I'm going to do edit type, and then yeah, it's still saved. So, oh wait, no, that's metal stud. So I'm going to rename this first. So I'm going to call this brick on wood stud. So that's the first step, is anytime you're going to go modify something in Revit, you're going to want to duplicate the existing thing you're starting with. And I'd highly recommend that you duplicate something that has, you know, enough stuff. Right now, this wall right here, you can see it's got a couple different settings that are going on here. Whereas if you started with a generic right here, it's just got one thing and no settings. So it's usually a lot easier to start with one of these pre-existing ones and then modify it to how you need it. So I'm going to go, so just to confirm, we just renamed this. So I'm going to go to edit here, and I'm going to start editing these settings. Now, I passed you guys around or you guys should have in the Blackboard a document that shows different walls, and specifically exterior sides of walls, interior sides of walls, and then the actual structural sides of the walls. So when you're working on walls, it's this sheet right here. I'm going to be using this. I have it off on another screen right now. But I'm going to be using that as a reference, and I highly recommend you guys do as well, because it does have a bunch of details that you'll need to actually put walls together for this class. So if I go here, you can see that we allow 6-inch nominal wood studs for the core, 4-inch nominal studs for the interior walls, sound isolating interior. Oops, what did I just do there? Concrete. So this is a case where I would allow a concrete masonry unit, But in that case, you do have to do a furred wall, which is a thin strip of wood attached to the cinder block that you can then attach gypsum to. But talk to me before you use any of these. So I'm going to be using this as a reference. I think there's some errors in here, so if I run across them, I will go over them, but I do not remember what they were. So I'm just going to go down on that first column right here and use some of the existing settings that we have. So let's say that instead of having, well, let's keep the brick. Let's do the standard size brick here. One of the things that I talked about in one of the other demos is what the core is. And so the core of the wall itself is going to be your structural part, right? You can see right here, I can't actually say that any of these are structural, just the core. So when you're putting your walls together, you need to make sure that the studs or the concrete masonry units are the only thing that's in your core. And I think there's maybe one exception to that, but I don't recall what it is. So in this case, the first thing I'm going to do, because I'm going to be doing a wood stud, is I'm going to come to this material column, and it's kind of hidden by default. Like if I don't have that clicked, it's right here. You can click on this and then that button appears. Or if you know what you're doing, you can just kind of click right there and it automatically opens up. And then the next thing I'm going to do is in this search bar right here, I'm going to type actually BATT, B-A-T-T, and it's going to be structure, wood joist, rafter, batt insulation. And so this is going to be what I would use every time when you're setting up a wall. Just change that material so that it changes your value. Let me drag this out. So it changes the value here for the material. Now, in this case, I want to get something that's very different from this original wall that we're starting with. So I'm actually going to change this to 4-inch. We're going to call this a 4-inch nominal wood stud, which is going to, because it's nominal, it's going to be 3.5 inches. And we're going to keep that checked as it is. Now, because I have a wood stud, I no longer need to do this substrate either here for the furring. That's something that's specific to a CMU wall. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm actually going to select delete right here. So I'm going to delete that layer. If I need to add a layer, it's the same process. I just click add, and then if I need to move something, I have to use these up and down options right here. So don't try and drag these around. It's going to be these little weird controls right here. So I'm going to hit delete on that. Something else to work or to keep an eye out on when you're working on this is that these layers are specifically ordered. This right here says this is the exterior side and this is the interior side. So this is your core where your wall stud is, and then this side of this core boundary is your interior side, and anything above this core boundary is your exterior side. Now, as I'm going through here, we have membrane layer. So a membrane layer is basically just like a piece of plastic. It has no width or no thickness worth mentioning, and it has material damp proofing. So leave that at 0. We'll change the rigid insulation. I think 3 inches is massively thick, but I guess we live in California too. And then I'm going to change this one down to a 2-inch air gap. So, we don't need to go into wall construction right now, but basically I'm changing some of these settings so that we do have a slightly different wall than we originally had. So we have your finish here. We can change these options. Don't worry about the difference between finish 1 and finish 2. It's something I'll go in kind of in a separate lecture. The material on that is brick, and we have a thickness, and we should have left that first row alone. Same thing with the thermal air layer. It's going to be thermal air. It's going to have the material of air, which is just an empty space, and we shorten that down to 2 inches. This other thermal air layer is going to be rigid insulation, so that's the thermal part of the air layer. And this is just your plastic sheet, or a plastic insulation pad, 3/4 inch thick, and then membrane layer. You have your structure, and then your material for that is going to be the stud, 4-inch nominal. Make sure that is checked for the structural, and then your finish on the inside is going to be gypsum wallboard, and we'll leave that at 5/8. Okay, so this is now a finished wall. This is what I've changed it to. It has the correct wood stud that I was talking about. So we're good to go here. So I'm going to hit OK. Now it still hasn't changed here because I need to hit apply here. And if I hit cancel, it's actually going to drop all these changes that I made. So I'm going to hit apply and hit OK. And you can see that it now has, and that one actually changed. Let me move this one back. Oh, oops. I know what I did. I didn't duplicate it. That's my bad. Alright, so I'm going to duplicate this. Hold on, is it going to let me? No, it's not. Okay. So I screwed up earlier in here, and I should have done duplicate and not rename. So this is brick on wood stud. So I will make my changes and get caught back. Okay, getting mine correctly set up here. Sure was it? Okay, hit apply and okay. And now we can see that we have two very different thickness walls, and that's because we took this CMU section out of this wall. We made it a thinner wood stud. We shortened the air gap in the rigid insulation to much thinner values right here. And then we also got rid of, let me crank this value out again. We got rid of this furring right here that was that extra wood that allowed the actual gypsum board, wallboard to be attached here. So we have two very different thicknesses of walls here because we made those changes. So when you're working with Revit, the thickness of your walls is going to be very important. So let's go make another wall type now, and I'll just draw it right here. And instead I'm going to do an interior wall. So Revit's going to come with a couple presets for that as well. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and correctly duplicate it this time. And we're going to call this the 4.5 inch wood interior, 4.5 inch interior wood stud. And I'm doing that just so that I can remember what this wall is, because you can't really tell in these little images that it shows. So it's easier to kind of go through that process. So again, same thing. I'm going to go through. I have the core boundary. Only thing in the core boundary is going to be the structural material. We're going to change this from a metal stud to a wood. Actually, we're going to do, it doesn't, yeah, okay, joist. So we're going to do structure wood joist rafter layer. This is, because it's an interior wall, we're going to do, oh, I should have done 4-inch on the other one, or 6-inch nominal. This should be 4-inch. So, oops, 3.5 inches. And then I'm going to call this 3/8 and 3/8. So we have a somewhat thinner wall now. Actually, let's do 1/2 inch. Okay, so that gets us to that proper 4.5 inch setting that I wanted. So I'm going to hit OK and apply. And I didn't save an original from that, but if I go back, let's see if I can get, is it this one? So again, you can see, if you kind of look closely, this one's just, oops, get off of that menu. This one's just like a tiny bit thinner. I mean, it's only an 1/8 inch thinner. You can kind of see that it's just got a little bit of that extra thickness right there. So these walls, as you do change these settings, you will change the thickness of your walls. So if you start putting your walls in your project and spacing everything out, one of the biggest mistakes I see is students will go in, they'll get an 8-inch wall, they'll build their whole structure, and then they'll come through and they'll put their walls in, they'll do other things, throw something here, oops, not that. Let's take that all the way up. Okay, so you go through, you put all your walls together, you think everything's perfect, and then you go in and you change all your walls to something else, and then you change your interior walls to something that's out completely different, and your room size has changed drastically because of that. So when you're working on this stuff, make sure that you actually build the correct wall types that you're going to work with before you go and build your structure. I know it's extra work, but you're gonna have to do it anyway, and it literally takes like seconds to do once you get used to making these changes. So make sure you build your wall types correctly before you start building anything. Again, Revit's good at letting you go back and make corrections, but I've watched entire projects change when wall types got changed. Especially the worst offender is someone who started out with like the generic 3 inch and had a bunch of stuff that was too tight when they went back and changed the walls to the correct thicknesses. So create your wall types first and then move on from there. Okay. So I'm going to open up another thing here because we're going to go way too deep into walls in this section. So let's set the top constraint of this to level 2 just so we all have all the same height. Shaded, medium. And actually, let's change this to consistent colors, and then we'll tile our views, because I want to have a view of what's going on in this 3D space. And we'll actually, what we're going to do is actually take this wall right here, and we're going to start changing these wall types, because Revit has a different way to actually manage wall types than if you want to change a color. All right, so we'll do that. All right, so right here I have 3 separate walls. Right now, all 3 of these walls are the same wall, right? So if I go in here now, I select this wall, I go into this wall to edit the type, and Revit actually has a very complex system for managing colors. So if I go in here and I click on this, and I go to, let me drag this open so you can see what I'm doing a little better. So if I go to appearance here, right now it's got this default kind of color it's using, and I can actually kind of shift this a little bit. So if I go in here and I go, I want a blue wall, and I'm doing that through this little menu right here, edit color, just to show that better. So if I change that to a blue wall, and then we do an image fade here a little bit, you can see that that wall turns out blue. It's got some other settings here where you can do like walls, and it'll render this in a more realistic thing, and you can drag this section down to kind of see that in a better light. So that's what that color would look like in a more realistic setting. And if I actually take this all the way down, we'll get kind of a purer hue there. So just made that color change here. So I hit apply, and I go, let's see, graphics, use render appearance, apply, okay, okay, apply, and okay. So let's change this back to realistic. Okay, so here I'm in realistic. It's doing the whole rendering thing, but I only changed one side of one wall. Remember, when I was in these settings, I didn't change all of them. I just changed this top material. Well, that's not how Revit works, because this material is the same as this material. And when I changed the color of it, it changed it on all of the things. So anything that had this gypsum wallboard here is now that blue color. So if I go in and I grab another wall that used that same material, which should be all of, let's see, let's grab the 3/8. Let's put that right there. So that one's already blue when it comes out. I think the CMU on metal stud had it as well on the back side. So you can see that by changing that one color, I changed everything in my model. So when you want to change the colors of your interior walls, which you will be doing in the class, you're going to have to go about it a slightly different way. So I'm going to control Z my way back to this point here. And this is how I would highly, highly, highly recommend you handle this process. So I'm going to go to edit again. I'm going to open this up. And instead of just going with this material here, oh, I didn't go far back enough. Let me do, okay, yeah, now I'm back. Okay, so instead of just editing this, what I'm going to do, so see it's like Control Z, so we're now back to this point where the gypsum wallboard is now that white wall surface right there. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to do duplicate material and assets. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a new one here, and then I'm going to call this one just dash blue, okay? So this is going to be my blue one. So now I'll go in here and I'll again change my color to blue, get rid of that, apply it, and now if I expand this back out, because I changed just this one up here, that is now the blue one, alright? So I'll hit OK, apply, OK, and then, let's see, I think I still had to change this. Oh, you know what I need to do? I need to check use render appearance. Let's get rid of this image too. That should just make it easier to manage. Okay, so using the render appearance, it's now blue, and it did this to all of them. So if I hit OK, apply, OK, OK. So now we can see that, and there's, I actually did use this on the interior over there, so you can see that these all have one side that's blue to them. So managing which side of your walls have which colors is super important, okay? So when you're going in and modifying these walls, you're also going to want to duplicate the original one you started with. So this isn't just going to be my, you know, whatever 4.5-inch interior wood stud. This is going to be the one that's, let's do green X and blue int. So it's this crazy long name, but I know exactly what this is now. So if I hit OK, I now have, and it should fit there, interior wood stud, green exterior, blue interior. So let's finish this one up. We'll go back in here, and again, oh, did I do that backwards? Let's rename it. That was blue exterior, green interior. It doesn't really matter for interior walls. It does matter which is which for exterior walls. So we'll change green interior. Okay, so let's edit this. So this wall on the exterior side is still blue. We'll go back in here, and I'm gonna again duplicate material and assets. I'm gonna change the appearance here to a green color. Ooh, that's green. Okay, let's do that. That's painful. Let's do that. Okay, so green color. Check the render appearance. One thing to keep an eye on is this little hand right here. Because I got rid of this image that was here, it actually fixed this issue. But if you're on one of these other things and you start duplicating assets, you run into issues here. I kind of have to address that as students run into it. But keep an eye out for that, and we'll deal with it when we get there. So then let me rename this one. This will now be my green side. So we'll have gypsum wallboard green, apply, OK, OK, apply, OK. So now all three of these have, or sorry, just this one has blue on one side. Oops. We'll get into that in a minute. Green on one side, blue on the other. All right. This one, we will edit this one, and this will now be our duplicate, and this will be red exterior, orange interior. So I'll go through the same process again. I'll edit, I said what, red exterior. So again, I'll duplicate this material and asset. Yes, it's more work than it would be if it was just SketchUp and you were applying a color to it. But kind of once you get in there and get everything set, it is much quicker to kind of just choose things. Though I'm not gonna lie, it does still take work. So there we go, red, and then this will be duplicate this one, and we'll change this to orange. Oops, nope. Oh, did I? I did it. Okay, yeah. I just didn't rename it. Orange. Okay. So we have blue, green, orange, red. Apply. Okay. Um, just double check this. Red, orange. Okay. Apply. And now I have orange on one side, red on the other. Okay. So you would go through this same process on everything that you need to change when you're working on walls in Revit. So again, pre-plan what you're going to be doing. It's totally fine to work with a generic, but when you start doing things like, I have a bedroom, and for this bedroom, it's going to be green in the bedroom. It's going to have a brick exterior on two walls. It's going to have another wall that's shared with the hallway that's a different color. So that's now two different wall types I'd need to have for that. And then another wall shared with another bedroom, which uses a different wall color. So now you need three wall types. And then another wall is shared with a bathroom, which is a fourth wall type. So you might need as many as 4 to 6 wall types sometimes if you have a really complex set of colors in your structure. So keep that in mind when you start setting things up. I don't require you guys to go super crazy with the colors because of that issue. But if you are setting things up, be prepared to, or using a lot of colors for different rooms, be prepared to have a whole bunch of wall types here where like I only have 2 here right now. You might have 20 for a very large project, just for your interior walls. All right, so that's modifying the colors there. There's a couple other cool things I want to show you guys that I'll show you with this third wall. So I'm going to go in here, we'll duplicate this again, and this is going to be our tile wall. Let's see, so we'll go to edit, and then I'm going to change this one back to that white, the generic default white one. Now, Revit actually lets you create new materials entirely here. Right now, I'm just kind of working with what's available in the project, and you can see that there's a couple different things here. But Revit actually comes with an entire material library on its own. You have carpet right here, which we'll get into on floors. But what I can do is hover over this little thing, this little ball right here, and there's create new material. Everything comes in as a default new material. And then what I can do is click on this little menu right here, which opens up Revit's asset browser. And this has a ton of different things, right? Sorry, my throat. All right, sorry. All right, so Revit has a whole bunch of different things here, and this is probably one of the crazy. Like, look how far I've scrolled. Like, I'm just scrolling, and this thing's not moving that fast. You have all kinds of different materials here. There's different tiles. Those are ceiling tiles, ceramic wood pattern, different types of natural woods. You've got your chromes. Let's see. Yeah, there's just a ton of things here. I'm just scrolling. I'm only in the F's and G's right now. So there are a ton of materials here that you can work with. Some of these aren't all appropriate necessarily for just working on like a full wall. But like, let's say we go in and do, let's see, 1-inch square mosaic wood. So let's choose this one right here, ceramic tile. So because I had this selected, opened up the asset browser, I have the option right here to replace the current asset right here. Replaces the current asset in the editor with this asset. So if I click on this, it's going to replace it with these tiles right here. Okay. So if I'm happy with that, I can do that. Another option, and let's actually rename this to blue tile mosaic. Can't spell. Okay. So we're going to do that, but you can also do some other things too that are really cool. So I'm going to create a new material, and I'm going to call this one, just so that it shows up, blue tile mosaic 2, so that it shows up next to the other one so I can just find it. So you can go in here and actually change or create random surfaces. So right now there's, if I'm on this appearance tab, right, graphics is the default, or is kind of one of the settings, but appearance right here, I can go into the image options, And I can actually choose different things here. And one of the ones I find myself using a lot is the tiles. Um, and so watch as I kind of go through some of these menu options. Uh, what? Oh, stop. Let's do this on a cube. Actually, let's do it on a draped fabric. No, that's probably not the best way to show off tile. Let's do it on a cube. Make this bigger. And then we can go into this edit menu. Why did I just do that? Okay. So we can go in here, we can do different preset kinds of tiles. So you can see that as I'm changing this, it's changing what's going on in that setting over there. So if I change this to something like 8 per row, you get these different configurations there. We can change the color of the tile. So let's see, let's change the color to we're going for, well, I'm going for that blue like the other one. So let's do this color blue. We can add in some tile. Ooh, not that much. A little bit of variance right there. A little fade variant. Oh yeah, very small numbers here. Keep forgetting. So we can change those settings. We can randomize. We can change the color of the grout. So let's say we wanted just a gray grout instead of. Maybe we should keep that darker. And then take down the gap width. So instead of that, we'll do 2.25. Maybe it's a little rough, so you got a little bit of roughness there. Let's see. And so we can just randomly generate like a completely different tile pattern with this setting. So you can see that's, something different than what this default one was. If you wanted, you could probably even go and create something similar to that. But you could also, like I was just showing you, create something completely custom like that as well. So there are some cool settings here in the options that let you actually create custom things. The noise is what it is. The checker pattern, like most of these are fairly static. The tile's probably the most interesting. If I was to duplicate this, blue, like marble is okay, but it's not great. It doesn't look, I think the tile kind of shines. If we do something like marble, it just, yeah, it looks like that. Let's see. Let's see here. There's not really much you can do with marble. Yeah. Let's see. Let's go to wood. So yeah, again, it's not that great of a color thing for wood. Um, let's see. I'm just kind of throwing in some numbers here. Probably not that high. 8, 5. Let's do 1. So yeah, it isn't as good as the tile. I think that it works when you're doing very small things, but don't lean on these custom ones super heavily. Let's see. Oh, that's cool. But again, this is using a texture image. So yeah, there's different things you can do here with these options. You could color tint it. Actually, you could crank up the reflectivity, so make this super shiny. Oh, that's about as shiny as that's gonna get. There we go. If you wanted to do transparency, you could. I don't know why you'd want to for that. If you wanted a bump map, So bump map is kind of like fake texture. That's when a great time would be to use noise. So see how it's got a whole bunch of like little dots right there. We could crank that up or down. We could go in, we'd actually want to take the size way down. It's a shame that only it applies across the whole surface. Um, you know what we also need to do is turn off that reflectivity there. So you can add different textures and layer multiple things on top of each other here. So here's my texture tile for some reason. Who knows why? So we'll add that, hit OK, OK, and let's see. This, because it is what it is, I need to turn this to do not save. So there's that side of the tile right there. Um, yeah, I probably wouldn't use that specific setting. We'd probably drop that texturing. So anyway, there's different things you can apply to these surfaces though that can change the colors. So again, when you're working on walls, just kind of circle back to the main point here. Make sure that you go in and you get kind of detailed with your settings here, because that's in my experience, that's the easiest way to organize all these things. Okay. Now, with all this in mind, let's talk. Actually, let's do wall profiles real quick too. Wall profiles is one other way that you can edit things. Earlier, when I showed you guys doing floors and ceilings, I double clicked and it brought up a weird menu. But what you can do to walls is you can click on this edit profile, and you can actually like kind of manually put in holes in things. It's a super cool feature of Revit that exists. So if I go through and I do this, I'll add. Oh, what are we doing? Oh, I clicked on that. Okay. Stay away from that thing. It kind of jumps you around. So let's do this and that'll separate this line segment out. So now if I apply this, I actually have a cut in this wall, right? This isn't how you would want to put in spaces for things like windows. Like, just Revit will handle placing the window in there for you, so you don't need to do this to things. But if you had a long running wall where maybe it's some kind of exterior wall that slopes down for architectural reasons. So let's say this wall was, where am I? Here. Okay. So let's say I had a long architectural wall like this. I could go in here and edit the profile of this wall and add in some kind of slope. Come on, there we go. A slope to it that I would have trouble doing otherwise. So this is a fairly cool feature. There's a couple different things you can do with it that I'm not going to show you because otherwise you guys won't stop using the thing that I would use to do it with. I'll show you guys how to use that later, but if I show it to you too early, it's too cool and everyone uses it for everything. So we're not going to do that, but just keep in mind that you can edit these profiles the same way you do with the other things. So now let's talk about floors. Floors are, because of the way Revit works, it reuses a lot of the same properties in different things. So when we go in here and do the edit wall types and we go to the edit button here, we have this whole menu. Floors are basically the same thing as a wall, except that when you go into them, let's go to wood joist. Actually, let's do wood truss joist. 12. Okay, so when I go and place this on the ground here, next to that wall, again, there's our outline for it. And I could do the same thing where I give it a crazy shape. We don't need to do that though. I'll apply that. And so there's that floor with the thickness and that carpet, that beautiful, beautiful carpet. So again, I could go in here and edit the colors of it, and I could change the carpet color here to be not that. Instead, we could do something awful like that to it. Again, I didn't copy this. I'm not too concerned about this one. What I'm looking for though is the settings in the menu here for actually editing it. So just like the walls, we have a core boundary, and then we have what's above it. So this is the floor. So again, your joist is what your floor sits on, or at least the core is what the floor sits on. And in this case, we have the joist and this is going to be a 12-inch nominal, and then we have plywood sheathing. So this floor you could use in this class, though I'd probably change that beautiful carpet color to something else. And then your core boundary in this case is going to be the joist. That's your structural part. The plywood sheathing is not structural. So that's something that you would want to, flag me down and just double check on before you turn in something with this. And so we have plywood sheathing, 3/4 inch. That's completely fine for the class. But I just want to point out that in this particular setting, there is a joist, there is sheathing, that's in the core, and then you have a finish layer above that. So anytime you're working on a finish layer, just make sure that that finish is outside of your core boundary. And in this case, it's up down. So that finish is going to be on top of it, so it's above it in the menu right here. Similarly, if I go in and actually, well, let's say that instead of 8-inch or 12-inch nominal, we do 7.5. Nope. Nope. Wow, I cannot type 7.5 inch. Okay. There we go. Apply. So I just shrunk up that joist. Now you saw when I did that, it actually moved up because this floor, when you assign the floor, if we go to the elevation, the floor is assigned to level 1 right here. And so when you draw a floor, the floor knows, okay, I'm a floor. I go from the top of my boundary down, or the top of my core boundary down. So if I actually crank this up, let's say this is 1 foot thick, and I apply that, see how it goes down? But if I undo that, let's say that instead I move this plywood layer above it and make it 1 foot thick. So we'll do 1 foot thick, move this layer up. So now it's above the core boundary. So this core boundary is where that floor assigns itself there. If I apply that, really? Wait, what did oh, because that says structure. Substrate. Oh, I guess it's drawing to the carpet. Never mind. So it's drawing it right to the layer there. Never mind, I did that wrong. That's what happens when I take a summer off. Alright. So, yes, Revit's going to draw that to that same spot right there. So if I move this floor height, actually let's move this up to level 2. If I adjust level 2 again, that floor is going to stick with level 2 wherever it goes. Right? So it's important that you assign things to the floor that they're associated with. In the same way, if I go in and add a ceiling in here, and we're going to go to floor plan level 1, if I sketch it, and we'll do the same outline here, green check mark to apply it. Now it's going to create this ceiling, and when it creates the ceiling, by default it's going to come at 8 feet off. So if I adjust this to, nope, keep moving the mouse out. Okay. So if I adjust this to 9 feet, it's going to stay right, or it's going to move up there. But if I move this level 2 around, it's not going to, because this is assigned to level 1. So this wall, or sorry, not that wall. Oh, yeah, that wall. Yeah, that. So yeah, this floor, this ceiling, and the bottom of this wall are all assigned to level 1, right? So if I go and adjust things in different ways, they will move around according to that. But because, at least with the floor and the ceiling, they're only assigned to 1 level, whereas the wall itself can be, has a top constraint here. So, if you need to adjust, again, the ceiling, you've got your height offset from the floor. If you need to adjust the floor, you have a height offset for that. So if it needs to be a foot taller for some reason, whatever, you can do that there. All right. We're at 45 minutes for this demo. Um, so I think that's where I'm going to call this one, and then we'll get a little bit more in depth into this system later. All right. See ya.